Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Lords of Limited. My name is Ben Warney, and joining me on the line, as always, Mr. Ethan Felling Blow Sachs. Pour one out for the Shivan Dragon. Ethan just teed it up and willed it into existence. You manifested Shivan Dragon being bad.
Shivan Dragon did it to itself. It's big, it's clunky, and if it was not a nostalgia card for you, you would have been telling me the same thing. Because this is like exactly the kind of card that I always like kind of fall into a trap for, and you talk me off the ledge, but your nostalgia glasses got you this time.
Here's the question. Have you played a Shivan Dragon yet?
No.
I also have not. So we can't just go by its stats, right? I think when played correctly, Shivan Dragon has a home. I think bad players are drawn to Shivan Dragon, which is why it has bad stats.
I have lost to it once, but I don't know how many times it has been stuck in my opponent's hand because it's a 6-mana do nothing.
It's hard to get 6 mana on time in this format. But why is Serra Angel great? How come Serra Angel gets to stay great and Shivan Dragon doesn't? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, 1 mana cheaper in a better color. Those are 2 things I could rattle off for it, but that's not enough to have like a... I mean, I don't even know what Serra Angel's stats are, but I imagine
Vigilance,
it's
such a bully. It's such a bully.
Yeah. No, it's really hard. Well, I think there's also a redundancy thing about, like, White has this really good curve of evasive threats, right? You go like Dazzling Angel into the 4 mana 3/3 Angel that cares about lifelink into Serra Angel, and you're like, I have to deal with all of these. And Red doesn't quite have that.
For sure. But you know what card has impressed me? We're just blowing the whole episode here before we get into it, but
whatever.
The 1/3 flyer. There's so many angels in this format that grows when you play an angel.
Yeah.
I thought the card was going to be a laughing stock, and it blocking Healer's Hawk plus growing. Like, once it's a 2/4, card's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have experienced that. I have not played that myself yet, but probably should. I think that's a product of how good Dazzling Angel is.
Yes.
But like, Dazzling Angel is great, and so then that 4 mana 3/3 Angel is great, and so then the fact that you're wanting those makes the Valkyrie better, that 2 mana 1/3. Yeah, but we are blowing it. It's week 1 of Foundations. We've got a ton of drafts under our belt. We've got so many things to talk about. So we're already sort of diving in. So let's do a quick pause, chat about the Patreon page, do our housekeeping, and then we'll get into the meat of the episode. Let's talk about the Patreon page. Patreon.com/Lords of Limited is where folks can go to give back to the show if they so choose. Week 1 of a format. Great time to be in the Patreon because you get access to the Lords of Limited Discord. It's hopping, it's popping, 24/7 limited tech support. Nothing on the calendar yet in terms of like, is there an arena open for Foundations? Is there, I want some high stakes limited events to really get to use the Discord to its full potential. But it's been awesome to just sort of have conversations, see where folks are at with colors. I think like pretty clear like what's best and worst, but in the middle, I think there's some, as we'll talk about this episode, what people are having success with blue or with red or with white, that sort of thing.
We are deep into the format. Also, speaking of colors, I woke up this morning to the DeFore best archetype mono green tweet. Like that's usually a week 2 development. This is going fast. Foundations learning is accelerated.
Yeah. And we got some questions about this last time. We referenced him. DeFore is a streamer, YouTuber, excellent limited player. But one of his bits is like every format he like champions what is largely considered the worst archetype. So of course he's coming out with a mono green deck. I did notice that he didn't say whether or not it did well. He didn't say like trophy easy 7-0 or something. He did just sort of post the deck. So we'll be curious to see if he is able to break green in Foundations, because I certainly can't yet. But yeah, Discord's awesome. Patreon's awesome. We've got our weekly Lords Unlimited podcast rolling out. If you want to check those little teaser clips on YouTube, we have those dropping on Thursdays and the full episode dropping for those patrons at that tier on Thursdays as well. And we want to shout out our new patrons the first week that they join. This week, we're welcoming Kyle, Anthony, Simon, Ethan, William, Cristiano, Dan, Marcelo, Jonathan, and Jordan. Thank you. We really appreciate your support.
Yeah, cannot say thank you to those folks enough. I noticed that there was an Ethan and no Benz. Is the comeback starting?
I don't know if the comeback's starting, but unprompted, you love to see an Ethan showing up out of the blue. There's dozens of us out there.
the Bens are just holding on to the number one Patreon ranking, right? Like we've run up the score so much. There's so many Bens. You gotta win so many matches. You gotta go 7-0 so many times to
Yeah,
get that
no,
number one ranking back for the
we're
Patreon Ethans.
it's gonna be tough for us for sure. All right, Foundations week 1, big core set vibes from this set.
Yeah, this set is making me realize that I like drafting way more than I like playing Magic. And I think the drafts are not like the most interesting in this
Yeah.
format, partially because the power level is so flat that like
Mhm.
once you get your first 3 picks, like there's been a lot of times I've thought, well, I feel like white's open, but the white cards I'm seeing aren't really good enough for me to deviate from the current course that I'm on. Like I've had that conversation with myself in most of my drafts, and I'm only granted like maybe 7 drafts in so far, 7 or 8 drafts in.
Mm.
But I certainly have played more. I was thinking about that this morning. Like normally we'd be doing this episode after only 3 drafts during early access or whatever. So I actually have
Right.
more drafts under my belt than I normally would when we're doing this episode. I just feel like I haven't played as much during actual release week as I normally would because this last week has been insane for me with band stuff going on. But now, your favorite line, I'm going to be less busy.
I'll have more free time. Fame. That's what Ben has written on his tombstone. Here lies Ben. He finally now has more free time. Well, what do we mean by big core set vibes? For me, it's about like sort of nuts and bolts, meat and potatoes, ABCs of limited. And that sort of harkens back to the dreaded acronym BREAD for me a little bit, where you've got bombs and then you've got removal. And for a long time, I feel like removal has kind of taken a backseat to threats in a lot of recent limited formats, with 1-drops being pushed, with removal sometimes getting a little clunkier, with there being lots of 2-for-1s, and so 1-for-1 removal gets worse. I don't feel like that's the case here. I feel like removal greater than threats in this format for me largely.
Yeah, I would call that as well. Removal is back, I think.
Yeah. And that comes off the back of Stab and Burst Lightning. We pegged this. I don't think it was difficult to see this, but Stab and Burst Lightning are huge players in the format as expected. And as a result, I think you have to be really careful about what 2 toughness creatures you're playing that cost 3 or more mana, because you can be really punished if you're dropping, even something like the Big Fin Bouncer, the 4 mana 3/2 that bounces something. Yeah, that's got an ETB, but like when you just get to snap that off, when you get to snap off, I don't know, you stab the panda, the black-white signpost, and they don't get any creature back. I think that like you just got to be picky about those spots.
For sure. But let's talk about Big Fin Bouncer. Where are you at on that card? Because I really like that card.
I have found that card awkward in the sense that it costs the same amount of mana as Uncharted Voyage, does a similar thing as Uncharted Voyage. But Uncharted Voyage is a spell and plays in that Holy Trinity space plus enables Tolarian Terror. And I feel like when I'm heavy blue, now I should say this caveat with I don't think I've drafted blue white yet, and I'm imagining Big Fin Bouncer is great in blue white. But when my blue decks are heavier blue, I feel like I want Voyage more than Bouncer. So I don't know. I'm not in love with Bouncer personally. I think it's fine.
I'm a little higher on that
Yeah.
than that on Bouncer. I think it's quite good. But I think I'm viewing the format as more aggressive and proactive than you are. It sounds like from the little bit that we chatted before the show.
Yeah, we started to talk about it and it got heated. The decibel level was high, and we were like, we're blowing it. Let's wait till we record. Yeah, I mean, I have drafted a lot of black, and that so I've been playing only best of one this week. And black has been largely open. I'm getting like pick 10 stabs in my drafts, and I just feel like that has enabled me to draft a lot of control decks, like black white control decks, black red steel and sack, black blue control decks. And so I haven't felt the format to be blisteringly fast.
I don't know that I would say blisteringly fast, but I think one of the other things we're talking about core set vibes, what makes a set feel core set-y, and it's to me, you have to play to the board in the format, whether that's with removal or with creatures. But like when you say control deck, like I have tried to draft like a couple 2 to 3 control decks, like blue black true control, like where I got a couple essence scatters at uncommons, had the stabs, had the bakes, had some card draw, had some big finishers at the end. But what I was missing was I didn't have many creatures like bodies at like 2 3 mana And that I think is a recipe for disaster for me in the format. Like I think part of the way to play control in the format is to play to the board. Like you have to match your opponent on the board to
Yeah.
get to the late game.
I had a Dimir deck that had 3 of the 06 walls that surveil 1. That's how I'm playing to the board, baby.
But that's not a good strategy, I don't think.
Why not? Blocks
Because
all day.
I've done that and it was not great.
Our,
For you?
our mileage is varying. I trophied with that deck.
But did you just not play against blue-white? Like what happened?
I don't know. I also had like a bucket of removal spells. Yeah, I have a point here later. Like 2-for-1s are not easy to come by, and so you prioritizing them I think is really good. Like Burglar Rat and Helpful Hunter as the black and white two mana 1/1s, discard or draw a card respectively. I think those are strong because I think there's something you can do with them afterwards. And speaking of like Sarah Angel's back, Phyrexian Arena is back. That's a rare in the set. 1 black enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and lose a life. That card has been atrocious for years in limited. Like it was in Phyrexia All Be One last winter, like I guess almost 2 years ago, and it was terrible, unplayable card. It's great. I've had it in so many decks this week so far. It's great. Like if you can just, if you have the turn to stick it, and that's why Stab is so good, is it lets you like catch up when you're doing that sort of like do nothing turn. But when you're like get like 6 cards ahead, 7 cards ahead of your opponent, it just runs away with the game.
Yeah, I completely agree. It is hard to find card advantage or card selection, card filtering, anything that helps you have control over your draws to where like you're just not vulnerable to screw or flood quite as much, because there's a lot of games that come down to that if you aren't making an active effort to put ways in your deck to mitigate that. And I think several things here, but I just think there's so much to dive into with the card Burglar Rat, because I agree Burglar Rat is excellent. This is probably the best we've seen 1/1 discard a card since Neo, where you could pick it up with a Virus Beetle or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But every card matters because so many of the 4s, especially 4-drops, it's so easy to get clogged at 4 mana because there's so many powerful 4-drops in all the colors, and then both colors have good 4s, and by that time, like it's really easy to end up with like 6 4-drops that are all super powerful cards if you're not careful. So you really need lands and spells, like because you also want to get to 5 and 6 mana, but there's not a lot of ways to draw extra cards. So a lot of times the Burglar Rat puts you in a tough decision where you have to either pitch like a 5 or 6 drop that you don't have that many of to try to help you win the game, or you have to pitch the land that's going to help you get to the 4 or 5 or 6 mana card. Like just puts you in some tough spots. And I think every card really, really, really matters in this format.
I have been playing, like when I'm doing the Burglar Rat thing, I know we have a card later on that we'll talk about, that's Seeker's Folly, which is the like Mind Rot split card. That's been kind of impressive. I've main decked Pilfer in this format, the 1 in a black like Thoughtseize variant. Like I have found that hand disruption like that, sort of for what you're talking about. Like there's because of the corset-y nature of it, there's a handful of cards that matter a lot of the time. And being able to get those before they get an ETB or whatever can be pretty powerful.
I have not played Pilfer, but I would buy it. The other thing that's along with this same train of thought, that it's hard to get 2-for-1s, the Burglar Rat is good, that sort of thing. I am on team never mulligan in this format. Like it is. My hand has to be atrocious at this point for me to mulligan, because being down the card feels so bad because it's so hard to make it up. Like we're so used to so many cards being 2-for-1s, or just ETB draw a card, or get free rummages, or get free loots. There's just not that sort of stuff running around. So my hand has to be absolutely unplayable before I'm mulliganing.
Okay, that's good to keep in mind.
Thanks to Miracle Made for sponsoring this episode. Did you know that traditional bed sheets can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat, which can lead to acne, allergies, and stuffy noses? Plus, it's just plain gross. Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning antibacterial bedding, such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent up to 99.7% of bacteria growth and require 3 times less laundry.
Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA and use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating, so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. Imagine passing with 4 mana up, and you've got Refute, an uncharted voyage in hand, and Think Twice in the Graveyard to flashback. Something for any situation, a feeling that can only be described as warm and fuzzy. the exact feeling that Miracle Made sheets provide.
Miracle Made sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels.
Go to trymiracle.com/LOL to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%.
And if you use our promo code LOL at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. And if you aren't 100% satisfied, Miracle has a 30-day money-back guarantee.
Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/LOL and use code LOL to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off.
Again, that's trymiracle.com/LOL to treat yourself. And now, back to the show. I think the other thing that identifies sets as core SETI that has really stuck out to me here is creature count. It's really hard, I think, to draft a deck in this format with less than 15 creatures. And a lot of time you're bumping up into the 17, 18 creature range. Like those numbers plus 5 or 6 removal spells is your archetype frequently. And I think that's a mark of a core set.
Yeah, I buy that for sure.
But that goes back to my point about control decks. Like those control decks I drafted, I don't know what you're calling control decks. Those control decks I drafted had like somewhere in the 7 to 10 creature range. And I think that is a recipe for getting yourself in trouble in this format. I think you want to play to the board with creatures, match your opponent's creatures with creatures and removal, and then try to eke out a few extra cards along the way, or try to figure out ways to not flood along the way.
Yeah, when I say control deck, I just mean a deck that wants the game to go on as long as possible. I don't necessarily mean that to ascribe a like sort of distribution of creatures and spells.
Sure. Like for example, my brothers and I were drafting Wednesday night. We play games on Wednesday night together and we were doing drafts. We drafted a super sick double Rite of the Dragon collar or whatever it's called.
I saw that. Yeah.
Before red. And it was fun. Like it was a good deck, but tapping out 6 mana to play an enchantment.
Yeah.
Like, you're just kind of crossing your fingers. Like, whereas like if the format were more friendly to control, I think you would be able to set that up more reliably. Like that being less good, I think, is a mark of it being more core city as well. Like you can't build around that.
I don't know. Like when was the last time there was like you could tap out for a 6 mana enchantment? That doesn't feel core set to me. That just feels 2024 to me.
No, Cursed Recording was great in Dustmourn. And yes, that's 4 mana versus 6 mana, but
yeah, the fact that you could do like on turn 5, you could play it and double a 1 mana spell. Like that's a lot different than like
that play pattern rarely happened.
Well,
I think
I wouldn't know. I never played Cursed Recording. I will defer to you, but I hear what you're saying. But it's a big difference tapping out for 4 versus tapping out for 6.
Sure. I think another thing that is a defining feature of this format is, and this kind of goes into the point of it's hard to get card advantage, or it's hard to filter your draws, or every card matters, that kind of thing. 2-drops feel really feast or famine to me. Like there's good ones that you want to play, and there are ones that if you put in your deck, I think you might as well be mulliganing.
And do you have some off the back that or off the top that you can think of? Like for me, I would say a lot of them, we'll talk about them later, but the X ones, like the 1 and a white 3/1 flash.
Cathar Commando.
I don't think that card is very good. I think the 2/1 flash prowess in blue is not very good.
Yeah, anything that's trying to attack through burglar rats and helpful hunters poorly is not good. I would say another one like the heir apparent.
Yeah.
Like that's just anything that's like a vanilla 2/2 ain't gonna get the job done. But then
heir apparent could be a vanilla 2/2 plus a 1/1 maybe.
Maybe plus a 1/1 maybe. But I think ultimately you've got to do more work than that from your 2-drops, but also you got to pick the good ones highly, or you end up with not enough 2-drops, and then falling behind on board is a disaster in this format. I think that's partially why I like the Big Fin Bouncers so much, is because it can catch you up when you've gotten off to a slow start.
Yeah, I buy that. Speaking of 4-drops, I wanted to check back in on a card that you were kind of aghast about, like on day 1 last week when we recorded Lords Unlimited, Felidar Sovereign. You were sort of like, how does this go around the table so late? I want to check what's your temperature on that card right now? This is the 3 and a white 2/3 lifelink. ETBs puts a counter on each of up to 2 other creatures. You still think great?
I still think great. Yeah, I think very good in the white decks. That is what I want my 4-drop to be. Every time my opponent has played it, I've grown, and every time I play it, I feel excellent.
Wow. Yeah, we are drafting different decks. You're still taking I would assume Banishing Light, Healer's Hawk, Helpful Hunter over Felidar Sovereign,
And Dazzling Angel.
and Dazzling Angel for
Dazzling Angel's
sure.
incredible.
Yeah.
I'm not as in love with Helpful Hunter as you are. I like
It's
Burglar Rat much more than I like Helpful Hunter.
I don't this your this it started with Carrot Cake and now it's bleeding into Helpful Hunter. Your dislike of 1 and a white smooth your draw affect the board is wild to me.
It's not that I dislike it. I just don't think I'm as high on it as you.
I think
my-
Helpful Hunter is a better card than Burglar Rat.
not in this format to me.
I think so.
But it's such a small body in a color that wants to attack. White wants to play Healer's Hawks, it wants to play Dazzling Angels, and then it wants to grow those cards or play the 3/3 Angel as a follow-up. The cat is not a key part of the white attacking deck's plans.
I don't know. I think it's very good.
It's a very good card, I agree. So that I dislike the card, it's just below, I think, like probably Banishing Light. It's below Banishing Light, Healer's Hawk, and Dazzling Angel for me.
How about that? But it's ahead of Felidar Sovereign.
Not for me, because I think once I've prioritized those other cards, I want Felidar Sovereign to grow my flyers more than I want a stupid 1/1 kitten.
But like that just feels incongruous with your thought of like 2-drops are feast or famine, 4-drops are redundant. Like Helpful Hunter is a premium 2-drop, and Felidar Sovereign, yeah, it's a good 4-drop, but like there's good 4-drops. So you don't get that, you get the 3/3 Angel instead. Big deal.
Maybe, except
you have to do some soul searching.
No, I do not. Stop trying to tell me what I think. Because once I prioritize the Hawk and the Angel, the card that I want the most to pair with them is Felidar Sovereign. If I have 3 Healers Hawks and 2 Dazzling Angels, I'm always taking Felidar Sovereign over the 1/1 cat.
Yes.
And because of my pick order, that's why I think Felidar Sovereign's better than the cat, because I frequently end up with the Hawks and the Angels.
Okay.
Because that's how I want to draft white.
Okay.
This is what was happening before the show, folks.
There it is. The decibels, they're high. Let's chat about the colors and where we're at, because maybe that'll, I don't know, shed some light on our differing approaches or different experiences this week. I think black is the color to be in, if possible. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, I guess.
No.
I mean, or white. I mean, black or white are both excellent. I think a clear 1 and 2.
Yes. I mean, just black getting stab, eaten alive, and bake into a pie, all at common, is really strong. The inherent sacrifice energy that we pegged, getting Infestation Sage and Infernal Vessel as like creature that dies into a creature, they like kind of feel like 2-for-1s. We've talked about the hand disruption redundancy that black has, sort of helmed by Burglar Rat, but then getting Pilfer, etc. I just think black it has a lot of really good stuff that it's doing on its own, and then pairs nicely with all of the other colors. I assume it pairs nicely with green. I wouldn't know, but the other 3 colors.
I'm testing it out right now. I've got a black-green deck locked and loaded. I haven't played any games with it yet, though.
Oh, great. Okay, cool.
It was the first interesting draft I've had all format. I started black, went heavy red, and then like got pushed off red, and somehow black opened back up. But green was flowing the whole time, so I just hopped in on the green life and have all the premium green uncommons. We'll see if it's good enough or not. But I do agree. The card that's missing from black that would be nuts in this format is draw 2, lose 2 life for 3 mana. Like that would be just absolutely premium, and it's just not there.
Yeah,
probably because it would be premium. I guess maybe it'd be too good.
Yeah, maybe.
But that sort of thing, like that idea that, man, I really want black to have that card, when normally that card in black is like ho hum whatever. You're probably hoping to not play it. I think says a lot about how hard it is to get card advantage going in the format.
Well, and a card that you had to talk me up on, and I'm sort of embarrassed about because it's so good, is Vampire Gourmand, the 1 and a black 2/2. When it attacks, you can sack a creature. If you do, you draw a card, and it can't be blocked. Like that's sort of black's way to like getting to go like Gourmand on 2, Burglar Rat on 3. They discard. Like you're building your own disinformation campaign, basically. Like 2 mana, deal 2, they discard, you draw a card. Like the Gourmand is really good.
Yeah. Moving on to white, very close to black. I think I would put black in number one because black is a little more multi-dimensional than white is, I think. But the white's flyers, the Healer's Hawk, the Dazzling Angel, I think has been the biggest overperformer,
Yeah.
largely because it has 3 toughness. It would have been so easy for that to be a 2/2 flyer and do the
Mm-hmm.
same thing, but it blocking 2/2s and dodging stab and burst lightning while gaining you life and just making it very hard for your opponent to race. It also blocks Healer's Hawk. It blanks your opponent's Healer's Hawks even with a pickaxe on them.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. And then Helpful Hunter, as you mentioned, good card. I think less good than Felder Sovereign if we're talking about it. But we've already mentioned Sarah Angel as a premium uncommon. But then the life gain packages that you can put together in white as well, stuff like a Johnny's Pride Mate has been insane.
Yep.
Partially because Dazzling Angel is just incredible. Like that just turns up a Johnny's Pride Mate, which is the 2/2 that grows every time you gain a life. And then Cat Collector also, shout out to you. That is the best white uncommon.
Yeah.
Two and a white for the 3/2, and then whenever you gain your life for the first time each turn, it poops out a 1/1 cat, and also gives you
Only
a food
on your
when it
turn.
only on your turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it also gives you a food when it ETBs. That card has been incredible. I think probably one of my most drafted uncommons so far.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sunblessed Healer has been good. Nowhere near the level of Cat Collector, though. Sunblessed Healer is the 1 and a white 3/1 lifelink that has Kicker, where you can return a 2-drop or less to the battlefield.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like that's a 2-for-1. It's a flexible 2-for-1 too, right? Because it can come down on turn 2 if you want it to. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like the gap here is that you have drafted more aggressive decks, and that's why I think you're like, oh, white's really close to black. For me, I'm like, the thing that's drawing me to black is all of its interaction, and that's why I'm like, oh, I want to be black more than I want to be white.
So, how much interaction are you wanting to play? Are you playing as much as you get of stab and bake into a pie?
Basically, yeah, probably. Like, I mean, I have to be able to then mitigate that, right? I need card advantage to make up for that.
Right, which is hard to come by. That's the
Mm-hmm.
that's the tricky thing. Like I've played against some red black decks, and you look at their graveyard, and it's like 3 bakes and 2 stabs and a whatever a burst lightning. But I still have pulled ahead because I've drawn like 3 more cards than them, and they've drawn 1 more land than I have, and like I've got some stuff left after the dust has settled, and that's one of the problems I think with planning to be reactive in the format is that you have to have the removal, you have to have it at the right time, like when it's in your hand,
Uh-huh.
and then you also have to find card advantage to back up your removal. I just think the pieces that need to come together for proactive decks are much simpler.
Maybe. I don't know. That has not been my experience. Like, I think that's why we talked about last week the 5-mana Gravedigger, the 3/2 flyer that returns a creature, but the flyer can't block in black. You were sort of like on that. I'm like, I think basically all my black decks want one of those. That's why I'm like really high on Vampire Gourmand, because like those are ways for me to get either Gourmand is incremental, like it was like a repeatable source of, card advantage or velocity. The Gravedigger gets me back a threat, poses a threat, which is good for me while I'm, removing stuff. I don't know. Like I haven't found it that hard. And then and that's probably why I like Helpful Hunter as well, is because in black, white, it's so good. In blue, whatever 2-for-1s I can get, my Think Twices, whatever that I can get my hands on. Yeah, I just haven't found it that hard to tussle with the aggressive decks.
That's fair, but I think all those cards you're talking about do generally play to the board, other than the Think Twice.
Yes, for
I'm just more saying like a thing that I really like from formats that I don't think this format offers is a true control strategy, like a classic control strategy. I think it is play to the board, match the board when you're control. It's not fun like 5 creature decks have a cool build around type deal. Like that is not an option that is available to you in this format.
Sure, yeah. I think so. We're just defining control in different ways.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, okay. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. With Thanksgiving coming up, this month is all about gratitude. Is there someone you'd like to take a moment to thank?
Yes, there is. I want to thank you.
Stop it.
I'm serious. No joke. This says ad lib in the ad read prompt here, but my life is better with you in it. I love doing this podcast with you each and every week. I feel like we have a great relationship, friendship. I feel like we can talk about things that are outside of Magic, and we've done that a lot the last couple weeks, and I really value that as a friend and a business partner, and those two things don't go together hand in hand often, and I really appreciate you.
Wow. There's another person we don't get to thank enough: ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we are trying our best to make sense of everything, and that isn't always easy.
Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself.
I know I've mentioned this before, but focusing on myself has been the theme of 2024. I started therapy, I started exercising regularly and seeing a trainer, and I am proud of the progress I'm making.
If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule.
Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge.
Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lords today to get 10% off your first month.
That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lords. And now, back to the show. So for me, blue is in third place. I think. I don't know. I've drafted so much black and white, so I feel like strong about that. I haven't touched green. We'll talk about that. Blue, I think, is in third place, though, like, Burst Lightning is so excellent. I just feel like, for me, red feels more like a support color than a deck I'm happy as a base color, whereas blue, I do think I would be happy with blue as my primary color. I do think the Holy Trinity is playing out well, especially Refute is like the best cancel we've ever seen, I think. The 1 blue counter a thing and you get to draw a card, discard a card. I've loved Refute, and then I've loved it in conjunction with Uncharted Voyage and Think Twice, like that sort of package of operating at instant speed.
So, questions for you about that, because I have also played that life, and I have not liked it that much, because I feel like those cards, like that idea, sucks me into wanting to play more of a classic control deck, and I don't think that's super viable here. Like, you also, alongside those cards, you really need good 2-drop creatures and the Dreadwing Scavenger, or whatever it's called, the 1 blue-black 2/2, the gold signpost uncommon, Smuggler's Copter.
Yes.
The 2/2 that draws a card.
I know.
Draws a card, discards a card, and then on attacks as well. You can't be doing nothing. Like, your plan can't be a handful of stabs, Think Twice's, Refutes, and Uncharted Voyages. There's got to be a good mix of creatures in there.
I agree, but I mean, I have found, so I guess this blue package has to play basically with black or red because of Burst Lightning and Stab, what they provide for you in the early turns. But I guess I don't agree with what you're saying. I think is sort of what this comes down to. Like, I am playing creatures in my deck, but the hand you just described, I think, is a great hand. Like two stabs, a Refute, or whatever. Like, yeah, I'm gonna draw into some creatures. I have creatures in my deck. But, like, I don't look at that hand and go, "Oh no, I can't win." I think that hand is a great hand.
I haven't found much success with it so far. Trying to be reactive. So
yeah.
maybe I'm building them wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. So blue, I found I like that package of stuff. I like the cheap removal in conjunction there. I think Tolarian Terror is good. It's nowhere near best common like it was in DMU. Nowhere near, I think, like, I don't even know if it's the best blue common here. I'm not sure if I know what is.
That's what I was going to ask you. What is blue's best common for you?
I don't know. Is it Light Shell Duo? Like, I'm not sure. Like, I'm
Strix
basically
Lookout, baby.
What's
Strix Lookout.
Oh my God, Strix Lookout. We'll get to it. That is not a card that I like. I just don't think I'm getting into blue at common. Maybe I think it's Refute. I don't know. Tolarian Terror is good, but you have to work for it a bit. I think, sort of to your point, like, because you do want to play to the board, that can sometimes be playing to the board with actual creatures. And then your Tolarian Terror gets a little awkward. It's also awkward that Think Twice is part of that package, and there's tension there with wanting to flash it back, and then that's one less spell for Tolarian Terror. I don't know. Light Shell Duo, overperforming as usual. The 4-mana 3/4 Prowess Surveil 2. And an uncommon Feybloom Trick, the make 2 1/1s, tap something down, Essence Scatter, counterspell. And Mischievous Mystic to an extent, though that is woefully underperformed my expectations. Like, I think it's still fine, but it is actually shockingly hard to draw multiple cards in a turn.
You know what it's good with?
What?
Strix lookout.
Thought you were going to say helpful hunter.
Also true. Fabloom Trick doesn't put a stun counter on things. It's been a
Yeah.
while
Yeah.
since we've had one that my opponent cast this against me, and I haven't had the pleasure of casting it yet. And my creature untapped, and I was like, oh, great. I was already planning for how far behind I was with it locked down for a whole turn. I do agree that Tolarian Terror is significantly less good. It's not that it's less good. I think it's more about when you draft it. Like, you're not
Yes.
picking Tolarian Terror and trying to draft a deck around it, but you will happily draft Tolarian Terror and put it in your deck once you have a deck that it is good in. I think
Right. I
that's
feel like
more
I
the
want,
distinction.
yeah, I want to know like what flavor of blue deck I have before I'm excited about Tolarian Terrors, because there's going to be blue decks where it's excellent, and there's going to be blue decks where it's a 6-mana 5/5, and that is much less excellent.
Yes. So moving on to red, I think I've got red ahead of blue in the power rankings. I think I would put the Mardu colors at the top, blue in fourth. And maybe this is a personal flaw, but when I've been drafting blue, I feel like it's making me draft bad decks because of what I like to do and what I like to do thinking that's not good in this format. And red forces me to get out of my comfort zone and be aggressive a little bit more. And I think proactivity has been rewarding for me. Once I've just started not messing around, like, I've just been savagely crushing. Like, if I put good creatures, good removal, ways to find card advantage in my decks, like, that's been the key to success for me so far. But Burst Lightning is incredible. We can't sing its praises enough. Red for the instant speed deal 2. Fiery Annihilation at uncommon, which is the 2 in a red, exile something, plus exiling equipment. Like, the people that are running around with Healer's Hawks and pickaxes or katanas, which has been an overperformer, the 2 mana +2/+0 first strike for a creature at cost of 2.
I mean, it's
That
an
has been
overperformer when you have Healer's Hawk.
correct. Yes.
Yeah.
But you need ways to pump your Healer's Hawks through Dazzling Angel.
Correct.
That's like a big part of the format, and Fiery Annihilation crushes those decks. It's so backbreaking when you stick a Fiery Annihilation. And a Braid also hits that magic 3 toughness mark. A Braid getting to 3 and getting Dazzling Angels and the like off the board, or a Dreadwing Scavenger after it's gotten up to 3 power and 3 toughness and Death Touch. Big deal. And then you've also got the active treason at common, the involuntary employment, although I haven't found that to be that good because red and black have so much other good removal. Like, and you don't want 10 removal spells in your deck or whatever.
Correct. Yeah. I think it's more like synergistic than it is as removal. Like, if you are doing, certainly with like Gourmand, like if you have like a couple of those, you just want involuntary employment because it's so good for you to have fodder for those than it is that you're like, oh, I didn't get enough bacon to a pies. I need catch-all removal.
Yeah. The other thing I think red really offers is a good curve of threats, like a good curve of 2-drop into 3-drop. So a card I like, I think that you are lower on, it sounds like, is Courageous Goblin, 1 in a red for the 2/2. And whenever it attacks while you control a creature with power 4 or greater, it gets +1/+0 and gains menace until end of turn. That's the kind of 2-drop I want in the format where, like, it's fine for it to be a 2-mana 2/2 on like turns 2 and 3. And then once you get into turns 5, 6, 7, it's attacking as a 3/2 menace pretty reliably. Like, it's not a red-green card. You just have to make sure you put a reasonable amount of 4-power things. And I also really like it alongside the card that you thought was better than Sheevan Dragon.
Goblin Borders.
Goblin Borders, yeah. The 2 in a red 3/2 with Raid that gets a +1/+1 counter whenever you attack with it. Those two are a very natural pairing at common for red proactive decks. And I think the other card that's really nice is Fanatical Firebrand, is the single red 1/1 that can tap to deal damage to something. That picking off Healer's Hawks, there's just a lot of X1s running around. And then it can trigger Raid early. And then also, once your opponent sticks those rats and cats, you can ping something, or it does enough extra that I found it to be worth a slot.
Yeah, for me, and I think it's just because I haven't drafted aggressive decks very much. I have found those cards you're talking about feel very replacement level to me. Like, the things that draw me into red are its interaction. Some of its uncommons, like I like Heartfire Immolator a lot. The 1 in a red Prowess 2/2. You can pay single red to sack it to have it deal damage equal to its power to something. I've liked Slumbering Cerberus when I've been aggressive. The 1 in a red 4/2 doesn't untap unless a creature died in your end step. And then Dragon Trainer, I still like the 5 mana 1/1, make a 4/4 dragon. But like those common cards, I'm like, I don't know. All those creatures just feel like whatever to me in comparison to the removal.
What? Sure. Yeah, but I think you also, when you're playing red, are you
Yeah.
playing red control decks then, you feel like?
Yeah, I have. Like when I'm playing like black red or blue red.
What do those decks look like? Can you like what does a blue red control deck look like to you? Can you give me like a general
Let me pull it up.
gist?
So this blue red control deck, it has bombs. So it's got like a Tali at the top of the curve. It's got Archmage of Runes, the 5 mana 3/6 spells cost 1 less to cast, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you draw a card. And it's got a lot of the cards we've talked about, right? It's got double Heartfire Immolator, it's got a Burst Lightning and a Braid, double Fiery Annihilation, double Think Twice, double Refute, double Uncharted Voyage. Like it's a control deck. I
Okay,
don't know what to tell you.
here's what's happening.
What?
We've had role reversal from Duskmourn. This deck is all first picks. Like,
Oh.
like this deck is nuts. Like, okay, just sure, blue red control works when you get this level of card quality. My drafts have been pretty competitive. I have not
Okay.
been like getting 10th pick stabs and 12th pick burst lightnings. Like the good cards have dried up pretty rapidly in my drafts, which is why I've been going aggressive. Yeah, this deck looks amazing to me.
It's a complete role reversal because that's what was happening for me in Duskmourn. Like I was like, I just have to draft Boros every time. Yeah.
Okay, we figured it out. That's what's going on here, folks. So if you're opening rares, draft cool decks like Ethan and getting every premium uncommon and removal spell in the format. If you have to dip into commons, be proactive. All right, that takes us on to the elephant in the room, or the spider in the room. Maybe Treetop Snare Spinner has been great. The 3 and a green for the 1/4 reach Death Touch, and you
Yes,
pay 2 and a green to put a counter on something. Green is not good. The green-headed stepchild, as it were.
Green is not good. But maybe Snare Spinner is a key to it in some way. I have not drafted base green since day one. I don't know what would make me want to do it. I've passed many a coma in the format so far. I think in terms of commons, I've been impressed by Treetop Snare Spinner, been impressed by Beastkin Ranger on the other side of the battlefield, the 3 mana 3/3 trample. Every time it has creature fall +1/+0. And then at uncommon, like Elvish Regrower is good, I guess. Like the 2GG 4/3 rebuy a permanent, Felling Blow, the removal spell. I will say, I honestly think the card that has given me the most trouble from my green opponents is Garrick's Uprising. The 2 and a green
trample, and you can't chump with all your stupid little rats.
Exactly. Well, and it lets them fight. Like, one of the things I feel like I get to do that green decks don't is draw extra cards, and then all of a sudden they're drawing extra cards, and I can't chump. Like, that's the card that's been giving me the most trouble. But I just don't know how to get into it, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what to do with green yet.
I've drafted it a few times to not tons of success, but I on the other side of the battlefield, Treetop Snare Spinner has been a must kill for me.
Yes.
Like, every time my opponent has Treetop Snare Spinner, I feel like I'm losing or in trouble. Like, it's a brick wall to the attacking with flyers plan. And especially if you're blue and white don't have tons of ways to get rid of things permanently. Like, it's pretty much banishing light or bust.
Yeah.
And then green also randomly has the 2/1 blow up an artifact or enchantment, which is I do think main deckable in this format. We had talked about that in the crash course, maybe.
Is it?
I just keep getting crushed by it over and over and over. I don't know. It's been very good against me. So if I'm green, I'm certainly going to be main decking it.
Okay.
Also, just the pickaxes, the katanas running around everywhere. I think it is fine. The thing green, I think, that needs to come together for it to work is you need Treetop Snare Spinners, and then you also have to hit land drops, which is tough. Like, green really wants to get to 4, 5, and 6 mana, and there's just no guarantees that you're going to in this format. I think that is green's biggest problem in my estimation. But then you also need better reasons than your opponents have to be at 5 and 6 mana, because the other colors also just get good 4, 5, and 6 drops. Like, green's large drops are not uniquely powerful in the format. So you're just most of the time better off playing a black-white deck that's naturally hitting 6 land drops, and then playing its 5/4 flyer that makes somebody discard a card and draw a card,
Yeah.
So I do think green's tough. I think there's something there, certainly as not currently. Like, you really do want to be pushed into it. Like, I'm
I,
green in this last draft because I finally got forced into green.
I think if you're playing in best of one on Arena, it's gonna be basically until the quick drafts open up and a lot of drafters move over there that I feel like you'll have to move into green. Like, I don't think it sounds like you did this one draft like because you were forced to, and so maybe people are catching wise a week in, but I haven't had that yet.
But there's also like I think if you're losing in best of one or struggling in best of one and you find yourself drafting green more frequently, try to not let yourself get pulled in by an Elvish Regrower or a Felling
Yeah,
Blow or whatever. Because it's tempting to say, well, green's open. Like, I guess I should draft green. Like, green has to be really open and the other colors have to be
yeah,
really closed, like, before you want to draft green. Not just that it's open, like, you also have to be cut out of like white and black, and green has to be really open
yeah.
before you're really interested in doing that.
That's a real key, I feel like, of like, not only does green have to be open, but the other color, like, sure, green can be open, but are the other colors open? Because then I'm still going to draft the other colors.
Right. And I do probably anticipate moving to best of 3 this next week just to check it out, see what the
Yeah.
landscape is like, get a different experience, because best of 1 has been pretty similar to me. I feel like
Mhm.
it's offering similar drafts, similar gameplay at this point.
What do we feel about this little archetype tier list I put together? You're usually our tier list guru.
I co-sign this tier list completely.
Wow. Okay.
100% stamp of approval.
So tier one, we've got, so this is rough 3 tiers of archetypes. Tier one, we've got black white, red black, blue white, and blue black.
Tier 2, we've got red white, which I have not seen yet or played against. Have you?
I've played it.
Have you?
And I've played against it. Yeah, heroic reinforcements is, I mean, as good as advertised.
So we got red, white, blue, red, and black, green. Only green deck making into the tier 2 or tier 1 archetypes.
Yeah, I don't even feel strongly about that, but I was like, we can't just put all 4 green decks in tier 3. Got to give a shout. It might, maybe red green should be up there, but I like black green in theory the most because it has black in it. And then tier 3, we've got the other 3 green decks: red green, white green, and blue green.
I could see red green sneaking into tier 2. Yeah, red green. I've lost to red green decks. Honestly, the thing I forgot to ask you about is you've been just pooping on Llanowar Elves.
Uh-huh.
The starts from green decks that I have the most trouble with are when they go turn 1 Elves, turn 3 aggressive 3-drop, or turn 2 aggressive 3-drop, like that 3/3 Trampler or whatever, into turn 3 aggressive 4-drop, into turn 4 aggressive 5-drop. Now, those draws are magical Christmas land for them, assuming they hit the Llanowar Elves and hit the appropriate land drops and have those threats.
Mm-hmm.
But those draws are tough from green decks.
Yeah.
I'm not like saying green's great or incentivizing you to draft green. I've been impressed by turn 1 Llanowar Elves from green decks.
But like only in that specific start. What happens when they do turn 1 Llanowar Elves, turn 2 2-drop, attack you for 1?
I agree. It's also been embarrassingly bad. Yeah. I agree. The card has been very polarizing. Like, there's been times they've top decked it and it's been atrocious, but it has been very good when they do Llanowar Elves threat.
I'm still selling. I'm still not.
Okay.
I'm not
just curious, and I don't have a strong opinion, but I wanted to pick your brain on it.
Let's chat about some overperformers and underperformers. I have been impressed by graveyard hate, and by that I mean I have been very sad when my opponent has had graveyard hate. I had an Angel of Finality played against me when I was 6 of 7 threshold in my blue-black deck. That's the 3/4 for 4 mana in white that enters and exiles a graveyard. Soul Shackled Zombie, exiling random cards. Like, it does make Think Twice worse, messes with threshold, messes with your recursion, which black has. Like, I do think incidental graveyard hate is good.
Yeah, Soul Shackled Zombie has been especially impressive. That's just another one of those 4-drops that's like really good. You don't feel great about cutting a Soul Shackled Zombie. It's the 3 and black 4/2 that exiles a creature, 2 cards, one of which has to be a creature, and then you drain 2, gain 2.
Yeah.
I don't want to cut Soul Shackled Zombies, but then if you're not cutting a Soul Shackled Zombie, a lot of times you have like 6 or 7 4-drops.
Right, because you're never cutting bacon to a pie.
Right. So like especially in blue-black, there's so many good 4-drops.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, we've got Dazzling Angel. This is 2 and a white for a 2/3 flyer. Whenever another creature enters, you gain a life. We haven't sang this card's praises enough yet. This card's ridiculous.
Yeah, this card is busto.
It's a threat. It's a good defender. It buffers your life total. It triggers all your life gain synergies. It does it all. Beers came into my chat last night. Beers SC was streaming, and he said, "You ready for my hot take of the format?" And I was like, "Sure, lay it on me. Is green the best archetype? What are we dealing with here? How hot?" And he was like, "I think Dazzling Angel's the best common." And I was like,
It's
I
not
don't.
that hot.
It's not that hot of a take. It's
No.
like lukewarm.
Yeah. Like, it's definitely the best white common.
Is it? Are you taking it over Healer's Hawk?
I think so. I think you're
I don't.
supposed to.
I'm not there yet.
I think you're supposed to.
It would not shock me if you're supposed to. I'm just not there yet.
Yeah. Inspiring Paladin has been impressive. 2 and a white, 3/3. During your turn, it has first strike. And during your turn, creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have first strike. The curve of 2-drop into this, into Felidar Savior, has been brutal. I have not done this myself, but I have faced it, and it is brutal.
Yeah, I have done that card a lot. That curve a lot.
Yeah, Inspiring Paladin's good.
Next up, Arbiter of Woe. This is the creature I was referring to earlier. 4 black for a 5/4. As an additional cost to cast it, you have to sacrifice a creature. It's 5/4 flyer. Whenever it enters, each opponent discards a card and loses 2 life. You draw a card and gain 2 life.
Yeah, this card's the truth, I think. You do have to do some work in draft to enable it, but not much, because black has a lot of like the Infestation Sages. 1 mana 1/1 dies into a 1/1 flyer, or your rats, or your reassembling skeletons. Like, black has sack fodder for this, but like, this card it's just really, really good.
Yeah, ends the games. Talk to me about this next card. I have been impressed by it on the other side of the battlefield. I have not had the pleasure of playing it yet.
Tragic Banshee, 4 and a black, 5/3 with Morbid. So when it enters, a creature gets -1/-1. Oh, I just realized this is Tragic Slip. It's Tragic Slip and Banshee. I didn't realize that. So 4 and a black, 5/3. When it enters, a creature gets -1/-1. But if a creature died this turn, that creature gets -13/-13 instead. Having a fail case for this is really important, because there are X1s floating around. So even if you just pick off a Burglar Rat, it's not nothing. And then free sack outlets, or just like on 6 mana, you activate your Ghoul, and all of a sudden this is true Flame Tongue Kavu. I've had turns where I get to do, okay, sack my rat with an Eaten Alive, exile a thing, play Banshee, kill your other thing. Like, it's just so good. This is way better than Morkrut Banshee was from Innistrad, which was a 5 mana 4/4 ETB. Morbid, a creature gets -4/-4. Like, that was like kind of hard to enable. Didn't always kill a thing dead. Like, this always kills the thing if you enable Morbid. I do stand by, like, I think this is am I taking this over Stab?
No.
If people are drafting appropriately, no. But you don't have to take it over Stab right now, because people aren't drafting appropriately. And I am taking this over Bacon to a Pie.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's really, really, really good.
Maybe that's why I haven't played with it yet. Because I think I'm taking Bake and Stab over it, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Goblin Surprise up next. 2 and a red for an instant. Choose one. Creatures you control get +2/+0, or create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. You think this has a home in blue-red and blue-white?
The red-white, yeah. I think red-white go wide. This has a natural home because it does both things, right? It is either enabling your go wide strategy or providing you fodder for your go wide strategy. And in blue-red, less so. Like, I think it definitely doesn't go in every blue-red deck, but if you're blue-red aggressive, right, plays well with Balmor if you're doing that thing, because it does right. It's bodies for Balmor in the form of a spell, or pumping up those bodies, that sort of thing. I've been impressed by the card. I haven't cast it much myself, only in red-white, but I think it's not bad.
Next up, we've got Dreadwing Scavenger. This is the biggest point for you, I think, from the crash course. 1 blue-black for a 2/2 flyer. Whenever ETBs or attacks, draw a card, discard a card, and when you have Threshold, it's +1/+1 and Death Touch. Card has been a beating. This to me is what the format is about. It's a great creature, great rate. It attacks well. Late in the game, it's still very relevant. Like, it's no longer just a 2/2 flyer. And then it also smooths your draws. It says you're not going to get, assuming you hit 3 mana, you're not going to get flooded or screwed unless this gets stabbed, obviously.
Yeah. But even that doesn't feel bad, because you get the fact that you get the loot on ETB is what I think pushes this card over the top. Smuggler's Copter is not a bad comparison. I stand by it.
Yeah, I agree. I co-sign the Smuggler's Copter take. All right, we got to talk about the little bird that could. I can't believe you don't like this card. Strix Lookout, 1 and a blue for a 1/2 flying vigilance, 1 and a blue, tap, draw a card, discard a card. This, again, to me, I think it's because you haven't played blue-white. but this card's insane in blue-white. It's also
Why?
because it turns into a 2/3 flying vigilance. It's good enough, and then in the format, it's hard enough to come by ways to filter your draws that you're willing to pay 2 mana to tap, draw a card, discard card. This is a must-kill card because late in the game, this says you win the game if it goes unanswered. Like if you're like derping around, both of you are derping around, turn 7, you getting to loot away every land you draw means you win the game. And it's proactive. It blanks Healer's Hawks without work from your opponent. That's how you laugh.
No, I'm
Healer's
laughing
Hawks
because I just feel like the format feels a lot more focused on Healer's Hawk for you than it does for me. I have not seen a lot of turn 1 Healer's Hawks.
Oh, that's exclusively the format I've been playing.
And yeah, I've just not seen. Seen it some, but it's also not felt like insurmountable. Perhaps because of the amount of stabs that I have.
This also triggers raid for decks that care about that. Like in blue-red, blue-black, it wears Pickaxe super well.
Sorry, I got it. This is like the 6th time. It's Gold Vein Pick. It is not.
There's no
Pickaxe.
Gold Vein Pick. You know what I'm talking about.
The
listeners know what I'm talking about. Gold Vein Pick. It wears Gold Vein Pick super well because it is evasive and then is a 2/3 flying vigilance. It wears Katana well. It does everything in the format. Like, what can't this card do?
Make its way into my deck. I don't know.
I think this is the hidden gem of the format. Do you know what was the card in? Was it Bro? There was some weird. No, it was in Ixalan. That 1/2 that like added a blue for artifact spells.
Okay, so this card is Oaken Siren, 1 and a blue, 1/2 flying vigilance. Tap to add a blue. Spend this mana only to cast artifact spells or activate abilities of artifact sources.
That card was excellent. This Strix Lookout is a similar card here. It's a gem for the moment, and then people are going to start picking it higher. But Strix Lookout is the real deal. I feel pretty confident that Strix Lookout is a good card.
I don't fully disagree with you, but I'm not. Do you think this is the best blue common? Where are you taking this? We're using a lot of flowery language, and I want to sort of pin down what you're thinking about when you see this card.
Maybe I kind of hate all of blue's commons, to be honest. It's either this or Big Fin Bouncer, I think. But the problem with Light Shell Duo and Big Fin Bouncer is they're both 4s, and there are a billion good 4s in the format. It's so hard to find good 2-drop creatures, and Strix Lookout is a good 2-drop creature. I think cap, as the kids say. I think it might be. I think it might be Strix Lookout that's got that Skibbity Toilet Riz.
Jeez, I cannot believe you just said that. I can't believe that sentence just came out of your mouth. I'll be on the lookout for it this week. How about that?
There you go. You love to see it.
We talked about Quick Draw, Katana. I agree with this in conjunction with Healer's Hawk, but that's basically the only time I've played it. Is a deck that I had 3 Hawks in. It's this is a 2-mana equipment, equip cost of 2. During your turn, equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has first strike. I guess if you have a bunch of Strix Lookouts too, maybe, but
the other home I like it in is black-white. If you've got a bunch of rats and cats running around, turning those into relevant attacking bodies is not nothing.
Feels like nothing. That's just not what I want my black-white decks to be. I don't care about them attacking.
Sure, you could take it or leave it.
Yeah.
But I think Overperformer in the sense that I thought I was going to put 0 katanas in my decks, and some of my decks want a katana.
I buy that, yeah.
Guarded Air up next. This is 5 and a white for a 1/1 lifelink, and whenever it enters, create 2 3/3 white knight creature tokens. This card is broken. The Imperial Oath Award winner right here. If we can give it to uncommons, we're not allowed to give it to uncommons, right? But this making an army in a can, plus frequently best in black-white. But I mean, you're probably just playing it in any deck that expects to get to 6 mana or wants the game to get to 6 mana.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can Macabre Waltz it back or sacrifice it and Macabre Waltz it back, or you can do the +2/+0 re-enters tap. What's that trick called? Fake Your Own Death. Super sick with Fake Your Own Death.
Yeah.
I've been going off with some Guarded Airs.
Can we talk about Macabre Waltz? Because that is a card that I do not like currently. I have not wanted to put that in my black deck. So that's the 1 in a black. Return 2 creatures from your graveyard and then discard a card. Partially because of a card you just mentioned. I feel like there's similar space occupied by Macabre Waltz, Fake Your Own Death, and the vampire, the 5-mana vampire, 3/2 flyer, can't block, returns a creature. those 3 cards occupy similar spaces of like ways to recur threats. And I feel like Macabre Waltz is the one I like the least of those, and so it frequently does not make my deck. Are you a fan of it?
I think my power rankings for those. I agree. Macabre Waltz has underperformed and frequently doesn't make the cut for me. I think it's Fake for me, and then
Yes.
Macabre Waltz, and then the 3/2 flyer.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear what you're saying about the 3/2 flyer. There's decks where I like will run a copy of that. I'm never
Yeah.
running 2 copies,
No.
and it's similar to Macabre Waltz. I think the better overall creature card quality I have, the more I want a Macabre Waltz just as a 2-for-1. Like a 2-for-1 in the sense of getting 2 great cards back. Like
Correct.
a 3/2 flyer can't block is not very good in this format.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree. Macabre Waltz has been awkward, partially because you really got to get to like turn 8, 9 before you're happy Macabre Waltzing, because so many of those decks want to hit their 5th and 6th land drops. So like you're not really ever happy pitching anything until turn 8 or turn 9. I think that's more the problem. Like every card matters so much.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the awkward things about this format is so many of the cards that end the games or like put the hammer in are 5 and 6 mana. So you really got to hit your 5th and 6th land drops. It's not like there's a ton of decks that are like 2, 3, and 4 mana with Macabre Waltzes where you're getting back premium 3 and 4 drops. Most of the black decks, I think, want 5 and 6 drop finishers.
Yeah, I buy that.
All right, next up, we've got Reassembling Skeleton. 1 in a black for the 1/1, and you can pay 1 in a black to return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tap. This card is an excellent engine in black sacrifice decks. Like, you should pick this card very aggressively because you're going to get the stuff to go with it in black. It's super, super annoying to play against. It's great to play with. And much like the difficult to get card advantage, this being a mana sink and oftentimes a build your own card advantage in tandem with something like Ravenous Amulet, for example, the 2 mana artifact that you can pay 1, tap, sack a creature to draw a card and put a soul counter on it. And then late in the game, you can dome your opponent by paying 4, tap, sacking it equal to the number of soul counters. Ravenous Amulet has been really good for me. Have you liked that in your black decks? I'm surprised to hear you haven't not talked about it yet.
I haven't liked it yet, but I hear what you're saying. I just haven't had all of those pieces come together. Cause like I feel like when I have had the like that the sacrifice package to an extreme, I like Amulet certainly like it less than Vampire Gourmand. And
what about compared to the 2/2 that you can pay 1, sacrifice something to put a +1/+1 counter on it, the Ghoul? I think Amulet's much better than that card.
I just don't like sacrificing board presence like that, but I could see it. Like it's weird. It's weird to hear you thinking the format's all about board presence and then liking this card.
Well, but black is so good at getting on board. Like you play the Infestation Sage, you play the Rat.
Yeah.
And then like if you can, that's what I like about this card. I feel like this card for black is what you're saying about Garruk's Uprising for green. Like this card is like you play all your normal black cards, and then Ravenous Amulet says, "Cool, I win the late game easily."
Yeah,
if we get there.
No, it's not a card that it's not that I haven't run it. It's not that I haven't been impressed by it, but I haven't, I think, perhaps found the exact right home for it yet.
I will say I think I'm only running 1.
Sure.
Running two has felt bad. Like when you draw both copies.
I would imagine it does. Yeah,
I will say that. It's like -1 card to start when you're trying to accrue card advantage, and then you hit your second Ravenous Amulet. The other card we should shout out is Seeker's Folly. I think it sounds like you like this card. I am insanely high on this card. 2 in black for the sorcery. Target opponent discards 2 cards, or creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 until end of turn. This is Plague Wind against aggro decks, and it's Mind Rot against control decks, which is just insane. I think this card is better than every black common, probably. And
no way it's better than Stab, right?
I think might be.
If this is better than Stab, then the Banshee is definitely better than Stab. Banshee's better than this.
This card's way better than Banshee.
No, buddy, I'm sorry. This is a wild take. This is better than Banshee?
This is better than Banshee.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I could be wrong. I've only drafted 8 times, but Seeker's Folly has massively overperformed every time I've had it, and every time it's been cast against me, I've lost quite handily.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I'm playing like 3 and 4 Healer's Hawk decks, but
Right.
maybe that's just
Yeah, if
how
the format warps around Healer's Hawk, then this is definitely better.
Yeah, so maybe we're just playing different formats at the moment. But
Yeah.
I've liked Seeker's Folly a lot.
No, I like it too. But I'm more like it as in that like black discard redundancy life. But I've definitely also been able to, scoop up 2/1/1 creatures and 2/1/1 tokens with it.
But the thing that's great about it is that every card matters. If your opponent
Yeah.
discard lands, it's bad for them. If your opponent discard creatures, great. Like if they discard their 5 and 6 drops, cool. You don't have to worry about as bad of threats late in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Some underperformers for me, which are mostly blue cards. Fleeting Distraction, single blue, instant, target creature gets -1/-0 until end of turn, draw a card. I found it hard, and maybe this is because I'm not playing aggressive decks. I don't know, but I found it hard to enable like a blowout with this. I feel like more often than not, I am like hoping to be able to cantrip with this, like on turn 1 or turn 2.
Yeah, this is just not good. I mean, it's not good because Tolarian Terror is not good. Like you're not trying to turbo out Tolarian Terror.
Correct.
Like there's no spells matter. There is like a little bit of card draw matters. It's just not good enough. Not impactful enough.
As a result, Micromancer has underperformed. 3 and a blue, 3/3. When it enters, search your library for an instant or sorcery card with mana value 1. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Like, there's basically one target per color. In blue-black, it's at its best because you have Stab and Eaten Alive as things you can go get. But like the fact that like blue's target is Fleeting Distraction and that's not very good is kind of a bummer for it.
I mean, Micromancer's still good. Micromancer also suffers from there's just a billion 4-drops that are incredible.
Yeah.
Like that's another problem. You just don't need to prioritize it the way you would have in DMU or whatever.
Well, and there's the fact that there's also setup for it that like you might like it's a card you like in theory, or at least I was taking it highly and then being like, oh, I have to cut it because I just didn't get targets for it. Or like
I thought you got 12 pick stabs in every draft you did.
I mostly do. It's true. I already talked about Mischievous Mystic underperforming, the 2 mana 2/1 flyer. When you draw your second card, you make a 1/1 flyer. It's still good, but I don't think this is like best uncommon in the set for me, like Windmill Slam, etc.
Yes, I agree. Definitely not close to the best uncommon in the set.
Skyship Buccaneer, 3 blue, 4/3 flyer. When it enters, if you attack this turn, draw a card. Should I be hot and bothered about this card?
I don't think so. Should I be? Does
great.
the data say it's good or something?
I don't know, but people like I've definitely had people on stream be like, "Ooh, that's a late Buccaneer." I'm like, am I supposed to care about this card?
I
don't.
Care.
I have not cared.
Care less about that card. I don't think.
Okay,
Strix look out over Skyship Buccaneer for life.
But great combo because one enables the other. You know,
that's right. It enables raid.
Yeah,
I'm not. That could.
So I guess not an underperformer because I didn't think this was going to be a performer, but it was a card I wanted to check in on because I feel like it's a card that I'm lower on than folks I've been interacting with.
Yeah, a couple other things to shout, which we talked about earlier in the episode, but any X1 that wants to attack, even something like Wary Lookout in green that gives you the surveil on ETB and
Wary
death.
Thespian,
excuse me. Yeah, that I don't think is good enough. There's just too many X1s running around, and then just random 2/2s that don't pull their weight in the late game. Every card that you put in your deck, I think you need to make it a goal that it will do something relevant into turns 6 through 8 somehow.
So is green a control color?
Yes.
More than it is aggressive, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because of this, like the spider is sort of like
the spider is the best pull. Yeah, like the spider. You want to slow things down. You want to slow things down and get to the late game, but the problem is you still might not have the best stuff in the late game. That's the issue.
Right. It's interesting. All right, I kind of want to try and maybe that's the move. The move is to best of 3 and then try
best
and figure out
and then try green.
Try and figure out what green.
Can't be trying green in best of 1.
Not right now. No. You were trying to call Time of Death on day 1 last week. Are you still there? You're not loving this life?
This format's not for me. Yeah. I mean, I like core set Magic generally, I think not for me. Like I like and some of it too. It's not just a knock against core set. There's just not much of a discovery phase here because so many of the cards are reprints. Like we already knew a lot of what we're going, or they were so obvious, like Stab and Burst Lightning. Like the coolest hidden gem has been Strix Lookout for me. Maybe that's why I feel so passionately about the little guy, but there's not a lot to discover here. And the games are what they are. Like, you play some creatures, you play some removal, you try to find some card advantage. Like, I want more from Magic than that. There's not a lot of synergy going on. There's not a lot of interesting archetype bleed. Like, the cards are what they are, and they do what they say they do. And you, like, if you want some good, clean fashion Magic, this is great for that. That's not my jam.
Yeah, I hear that. I do think like they nailed like as what the I think mission statement was for the set, like an approachable format. What I said, ABCs of limited. I feel like they nailed it, and like in a way that I've enjoyed discovering things like, maybe not discovering Sarah Angel, but like Phyrexian Arena cards that I'm like, these are usually not great, and this is actually a good card in this limited format. That's cool. But I agree with you that there's not much yet that I felt we've discovered. So maybe we'll come to the table with some green takes for next week, and we'll have Pioneer Masters on the horizon soon.
I'm very glad that Pioneer Masters is coming out in early December.
Yeah.
All right, great place to wrap us up. Thank you, as always, to Salty Pretzels for our intro and outro music. Make sure you give it a listen.
You can find all of our content on our website. We've got a tier list up there for Foundations. You got that early in the format. Sounds like
I need to update that. That has not been touched since pre-playing with the cards. I'll get on that, listeners. Okay. It'll be updated by the time you go look.
Tier list updated for you over there, as well as our episode backlog, links to our YouTube channel. If you're not watching the episodes on YouTube, let's head on over there for draft videos or our clips of Lords Unlimited. You can find our links to our Patreon page on our website as well. All of that good stuff at lordsoflimited.com.
If you got any feedback about the show or any questions, shoot us an email at lordsoflimited@gmail.com.
Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week for another episode of Lords of Limited.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.